Hey everyone, Digital David here. Today in this video, I'm going to be checking out the Be Quiet Dark Base Pro 901 in white. This case is also available in black depending on your builder preference. Be Quiet did send me this case, but any opinion expressed in this video is strictly my own. That being said, if you're interested in this product or you want to find out more about it, the link to it will be in the video description. Let's flip it around so you can see the side and the back side with the nice breakout right here with some additional product information. You'll also be able to see the tech specs on this side of the box and our color sticker down here at the bottom. Plenty of room for massive parts and components, the latest and greatest GPUs, all of that good stuff with this case. It actually has a touch sensitive and touch control I/O panel up at the top. This case also comes with 3 140mm fans, specifically Be Quiet's very own Silent Wings 4 fans. This also has an inverted layout, so this case is very customizable. If you want to move the motherboard for that inverted layout, you'll be able to do that with this particular case. Now let's go ahead, let's open it up and see what's inside. First, let's start with the accessories. We have a lot of goodies to go over here. First up, you'll find the user guided manual, walking you through everything you need to know from each individual part and component listed here. 2 different sizes and specs of radiators, fan configurations, all of that good stuff. And then we have different images walking us through the different settings, how to remove, how to add. Just walks you through all the configurations here. So very detailed user guide and manual. Next, you'll find we have this hardware kit with some screws, some pads, some cable management options there, followed by all of our additional screws up here in the kit of 5 bags sealed together. Next, you'll find optical disk drive bracket here, followed by some cable management brackets, GPU brackets, depending on if you're going to do the regular installation or if you want to go the inverted route. You'll find a mesh panel, radiator bracket, power supply shroud. This is going to be your vented option here. And we have a hard drive cover. Now let's go ahead, let's look at the case. Here's a look at the case. It's beautiful. Let's look at it up close. Looking at the top of the case, we'll have to do this in 2 sections because this is so massive up here on our table. First, you'll notice at the top we have our 15-watt wireless charger built in, and then a nice mesh panel here. And towards the front, angled down with the front panel, you'll notice all of our I/O options. So you'll see our touch-sensitive controls down here with the physical power button, mic jack, headphone jack, 4 USB Type-A ports, and 1 USB Type-C. And here's a look at the other side of the top with the mesh continuing towards the back of the case. For those wondering about the top, this is removable if you want. Just go ahead, press in right there near the charger, and then you can pop up and out of the way the top cover, revealing a couple more options here for us that then we can just pop up to remove if we want to install some radiators, do some cable management, things along those lines. We can pop those panels up and out of the way. You can even see the release here for the bracket if you want to take that out as well. Then everything will just snap right back in place in reverse order. Here's a look at most of the front panel here. Again, controls, all of our I/O up at the top, and then we have a solid metal piece for the front. And further down, that piece continues. It's separated at the bottom with the Be Quiet logo and branding, and you can get a feel for the legs on this case and how much gap you'll have from your floor or carpet. Now we have the front panel cover popped off, and you'll notice at the bottom we can open this up, and at the seam here we have some lighting. Can't wait to see that illuminated. And you're looking at the front panel now with the cover removed. There's the rest of it there. And take a look at that cover and the nice insulation and sound dampening that we have here on the front to keep everything true to their name, nice and quiet. Now you're looking at the bottom of the case right here with our support feet and the stand, nice metal construction. You'll see a removable dust screen and filter here. So to get access to that, you can pull off everything all at once right there from the front panel if you want to remove it that way. To get access here, if you had like an optical drive, and then this just pulls right out so you can easily clean as needed. And here's a look at the rest of the bottom of the case with the feet on the other side. Again, identical symmetric construction there at the base with a lot of nice grip. Now you're looking at the back side, at least the bottom portion of the case first. The feeder here, power supply goes here, all of our expansion slots, and if we want to rotate our GPU 90 degrees, that can be achieved with this case as well. Pay attention here on both sides. We have the little lip to pull off and slide off both the back panel and the front tempered glass panel. Moving further down the case, you'll see our exhaust fan here, as well as our motherboard I/O spot, and then up at the top, you'll see some thumb screws here and some additional venting for the top panel. Looking at the back side of the case, you'll see that venting going along the top and the side, as well as a portion of that back panel slotted out for proper venting. It's just not going to be one solid piece of metal. You will have some breathability back here. And that continues on all the way down to the bottom, where you get a nice side profile of the feet. Back cover's been removed. Take a look at the quality of this cover again with the sound dampening that they have on the back panel. You'll notice at the back of the case, we have tons of different cable management channels and options here. Lots of room for expansion, add multiple drives. Further down, we have additional drive bays, as well as plenty of room for our power supply. And last but not least, it's time to look at that tempered glass side panel. You'll notice a white border and bezel throughout. Same mesh along the top and the sides. And here's a look further down at the case. The tempered glass goes all the way to the bottom, and you'll see that side profile of the feet again. With the tempered glass panel removed, you can really get a feel for the size of this case. Looking at our motherboard spot here, all the way up to EATX. We have massive 140 millimeter fans included, 3 total. We have some nice fan connection options here up at the top, and even one along the front. Nice to see those built right in. Further along down at the bottom, you can see the Dark Base Pro branding here, and we got our illuminated light down below that. Can't wait to see that lit up as well. Now let's go ahead and get our PC built. All right, the PC has been built. Really quickly, let's go over the specs. So powering everything is our bequiet Pure Power 12M 1200 watt fully modular power supply. Yes, this does have your PCIe 5.0 connector for GPUs up to 600 watts. Our CPU in this build is going to be our AMD Ryzen 7 7700X CPU. Thanks to bequiet, they included 2 extra fans for us. So we have the 120 and 140 millimeter Pure Wings 3 fans in white that I went ahead just for fun added to the case. We also have 64 gigabytes of the G.Skill Trident Z5 Neo RGB, DDR5 6000 mega transfers per second. The motherboard we're using in there is the MSI. It's their MAG. It's their X670E Tomahawk Wi-Fi. I love MSI motherboards. And then last but not least, it's going to be our Gigabyte GPU. It's their 4070 Super. Now let's go ahead. Let's take a close-up look of all the components. As we enter into the build, you'll notice front and center the bequiet Dark Rock Elite CPU cooler. Love the RGB on it and the thoughtfulness for this adjustable fan. It's basically on rails, and you can slide it up or down depending on the RAM clearance with your build. There's our rear exhaust fan. And on the other side, we have our other 2 included 140 millimeter fans right there, the Silent Wings 4 in white. I didn't adjust those at all. We could move those up or down. We could pop this off too to reveal our hard drive tray. We can put that mesh shroud up if we want some additional venting, or to install another fan down below. Let's really appreciate the Dark Base Pro branding and the RGB strip. Looks really good. Here's the GPU mount. This is just magnetic, and then the cover just snaps on. So we routed our power cable through there and then adjusted this up. It's a little goofy with this design. I'm not really sure how to make it any better, but it was good enough for us in this case. But just a little interesting right here. There's basically a piece of metal that's in the way, which is exactly where I want this to be, if that makes any sense. So this adjusts up and down though, but just keep in mind you might encounter something similar. And then the magnetic mount is a great idea, but the magnet's not as strong as I want it to be, especially if you have any tension here for the power cord. But take a look at that. GPU looks great. We have so much room in this case. Down below, got our HD audio, front panel, some RGB, USB Type-C, motherboard power, our fan, some more RGB, CPU fan. You also notice further down here, tucked away, That's your USB 3.0. Technically, this has two needed for the front I/O, so we only have one connected. Up at the top, look at all that room back there. You can see how we managed our cables in the back. CPU power. And then up at the top, those are the two fans that are additional that I installed that are not included with the case. Give you a look at the back side right here with our MSI motherboard I/O, GPU, and power supply down at the bottom. Back panel's off. Take a look at all the room back here. Tons of room down below. There's our Pure Power 12 amp power supply. All of our cables routed up and through there. Basically right down this channel on that side. It's all mounted. We just left the default straps on the cable on the side, how they had it straight from the factory. And then on this side, CPU power cables come up and out of the way. And then at the top, there's all of our fans connected and then tucked down through this channel. With everything powered up, take a look at the touch controls on our front panel there. Everything illuminates for us, for the fan controls, the power button, and what's cool when you're looking at the different controls for the RGB, this will give you a real-time preview and display of the lights right there built in. So when you're changing color or lighting effects, you get a nice little preview there without having to necessarily look at any of the lights to know exactly what you're changing. We need to talk about the touch control panels in a little bit more detail. Let me share with you my experience. So that has been the most problematic thing with this case. It's nothing during the build process. It's just everything afterwards, specifically the fan controls. The RGB works great, super responsive. You can sync it to your motherboard, right? So you just press the sync button to sync it, or you can press it again to manually control everything. So right now it's synced to our board. We can go ahead, we can unsync it, and then we can just change colors, effects, all of that. Super responsive. Everything works as you would expect it to. When we initially booted everything up, the fan control worked too, but it only allowed us to turn everything up, and then it was basically stuck there even though the controls stopped working. Didn't matter if we had it plugged into the motherboard or not. We went into BIOS to confirm we had PWM enabled, not DC or auto, anything like that, specifically for the port that we were plugged into. So I'm not sure what happened to the fans here, but basically it appears it still syncs to the board. We just don't have any controls either way, whether it's plugged in or not. I never planned on using that too much, but that's a feature you're paying for and you'd like to have it work, right? So anyways, just wanted to point that out. That could be an MSI motherboard issue. I don't know. There's just a lot to troubleshoot and figure out there, but we have not been able to get that to work. The RGB works great. The fan control does not. It did, and then it just magically stopped working after one press. Another feature to try out is the built-in wireless charger. So let's go ahead, let's put our iPhone on it, and you'll see that it registers and everything is charging. So if you have this case on the floor next to you, that'll be a really nice feature to have. If you have it on your desk, you know, it just depends how far back is it. Can you actually see to place this on and know that it's charging? Things like that you'll have to consider. Same with down below. If you actually are going to add like an optical disk drive, if you have this on your desk like this, that's great. You'll be able to easily access it. But if you have this on the floor, that's pretty low and far down to get access to that panel. So if we pop that off here, your drive can be right there. So just something else to consider too, where you're going to actually have this computer long term to fully take advantage of the optical disk drive placement and the wireless charger. Now let's talk about the performance. So first thing I want to mention is I did add two fans up at the top, but I've disabled those fans. So we're just going to use the 3 included case fans to try to get a realistic, better expectation of what you can expect if you don't add any fans to your build. Now keep in mind, we do have 2 fans on our CPU cooler and 3 fans on our GPU. So with that being said, nothing else has been modified on the case. We didn't swap front panels or add any mesh inside or anything along those lines. This will just help us see what you can expect at idle as well as under a full load. We're really going to heat this thing up, but keep in mind your results will vary depending on how you configure your case and what parts and components you use. So again, we're using the AMD 7700X and the Gigabyte RTX 4070 Ti GPU with the 3 included 140 millimeter fans from bequiet, 2 on the front bringing cool air in, and 1 exhausting warm air out the back. This is what you can expect under idle. We're looking at about 35 degrees Celsius for the CPU and we'll round up to 27 degrees Celsius for the GPU. Now let's go ahead and stress it out. All right, our temps have held steady, so we have our peak values here for the CPU and GPU. CPU's holding steady at around 92 degrees Celsius. Again, that's up from our idle temps of 35 degrees Celsius, and our GPU is peaked at around 60 degrees Celsius. That's up from our idle temps of 27 degrees Celsius, but everything is well within range, and everything's staying nice and cool. I do feel some warm air exhausting out the back, as you would expect. But a lot of that is a testament to the cooler that we have on here, as well as all of the ample venting on the front for the cool air. We have venting on the back panel, the top, and obviously our exhaust. It's time for my favorite test. This is the smoke test. We take our smoke machine here and we inject that smoke in the front panel so you can watch the air move and funnel all throughout the case. It'll exhaust out the back. Some will even go out the top as hot air will naturally rise. This is just a visual indicator to see what the airflow looks like in this case with how we have everything configured. I mean, look at that. Most of that air is moving up and right out the back. So it's coming in here. It's being pushed through our CPU cooler. That's basically intercepting everything. You'll notice hardly anything is actually coming out the top. And then it's all being pushed through and exhausting out the back. We got our 3 fans from the GPU as well, bringing in some air from the bottom and then pushing all that warm air up and out. So same thing as that smoke comes in, you're seeing it move through the case and shoot right out the back. Now let's try the back panel. All right, so same thing as that smoke enters in. It's really, everything's being intercepted right here and shooting out the back. So after building in this case and using this case, let me share with you my final thoughts. In regards to parts, components, and build quality, everything is top notch. I'm really happy with the materials that they use. They give us so many extras because you can really customize this case. Don't forget about that inverted layout. Now you have to reconfigure just about everything, but that can be done and achieved with this case. I do want to point out that I really wish they gave us one extra 140 millimeter fan and bonus points in the future if they gave us those 4 fans. I want 4 instead of 3 with RGB to match the RGB aesthetic that we already have going with this case. Really just subtle RGB that looks really nice and has that nice modern aesthetic. Let's talk about the front IO. That's going to be the biggest problem point for me with this case, is just the unreliableness of the fan controls. That could be the motherboard's fault. It could be user error, but it was working right away initially and then has no longer been able to register anything. The RGB controls are nice though, and they're right at your fingertips. I love all the USB up at the top, but just make sure your motherboard supports that so you can take advantage of all those ports. Some people might miss having a hard drive indicator light and a reset button. For me personally, not a big deal, but also just remember that and consider that as you think about this case. Optical drive placement down below too could be a problem depending on where you have this. You might just reach and bend over really low to get access to your drive, or put it up on a table, but then it's going to be a lot harder to wirelessly charge your phone. But really a nice case overall, even with a couple of those quirks right there. Thankfully, I don't live and die by fan controls on my panel, but that is a premium feature you're paying for, so it would be nice if it worked for us and worked easily. I like the fan hubs that we have in those controllers in the board already. Very easy to integrate and just one cable to plug into our motherboard. So really well thought out. Unfortunately, whether it's MSI's fault or bequiet's fault or my fault, it's just not working out for us right now. Next, we can't forget about the GPU bracket and holder there. I'm glad they included one, especially for these big, beefy cards, so they're never going to sag or anything like that. I do wish, though, that they made it even better to make the adjustments. I don't know, it just seems a little clunky to me with how you have to do it. It's almost like it's over-engineered and not as simple as it should be. And I also wish that they included a stronger magnet or some sort of mount to make sure it can really be firmly in place. The good news is this case is so heavy, you're not moving it around, so once you set it, you can truly forget about it. And lastly, we can't forget about how quiet this case is. Be Quiet is still my go-to brand for streaming, gaming, and filming PCs. I'm even filming on one right now. You never know it because they run so quiet. So that's going to be one of my favorite features again with this product, how insulated it is, how quiet the fans are, and how good of a job it does actually in the real world not making much noise. I can actually hear the PC behind me a lot more than I can hear this PC right next to my ear. So I just kind of puts it in perspective for what you get with the case like this. High quality parts and components and materials like that insulation built in. It's just those subtle little things that make a difference over time.